Well, welcome to Impact Moment. I'm Pastor Donna from Impact Church, located in Aurora, South Dakota. We are continuing on with chapter 15 of The Circle Maker by Mark Batterson, and let's get into it. So our author is talking about making goals or writing down your dreams, and he's talking about life goals, and there's a little bit difference between short-term versus long-term goals like that. And so he begins our chapter on page 177. He writes, on a rainy afternoon in 1940, a 15-year-old dreamer named John Goddard pulled out a piece of paper and wrote "My Life List" at the top. In one afternoon, he wrote down 127 life goals. Now, side note, I think that's just incredible because I don't even know if I could come up with 10 life goals at the moment. I mean, it would take me a long time. So for this 15-year-old to come up with 127 is really amazing. He says, it's amazing what can be accomplished in one afternoon, isn't it? And by the time this boy turned 50 years old, John Goddard had accomplished 108 of his 127 goals. And they were no garden variety goals either. So here's just a few that he had written down. It says, milk a poisonous snake. Why that's a goal, I don't know, but he did it. And skin dive to 40 feet and hold a breath to 2.5 minutes underwater. Now, okay, that kind of sounds like a 15-year-old goal right there, right? Learn jujitsu. And he did. Study primitive culture in Borneo, and he did. Land on and take off from an aircraft carrier, and he did. Run a mile in 5 minutes, and he did. Go on a church missions trip, and he did. Retrace the travels of Marco Polo and Alexander the Great. Wow, and he did. Learn French, Spanish, and Arabic. Wow, he did. Play the flute and violin. Yep, he did that too. Photograph Victoria Falls in Rhodesia. He did that. Light a match with a .22 rifle. He did that. Climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and he did that. Study Komodo dragons on the island of Komodo. He did that. Build a telescope. Wow, this kid is really smart because he did that. Read the Bible from cover to cover. Woohoo, he did that. Circumnavigate the globe. He did that too. A couple more. Visit the birthplace of Grandfather Sorensen in Denmark. He did that. And he also did publish an article in National Geographic magazine. Wow. So that's just a snippet of the 108 goals that he did accomplish. Wow. So our author says, my favorite Goddard goal is one that he actually never achieved. He said, visit the moon. Now that is dreaming big and thinking long. He set the goal before anyone had ever escaped the Earth's atmosphere. And John Goddard has not accomplished every goal he set. He never climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and his quest to visit every country in the world just fell a few countries short. And there were also some disappointments along the way. So his goal of studying Komodo dragons was thwarted when his boat broke down 20 miles offshore. So Goddard hasn't accomplished all of his goals, but I doubt he would have accomplished half of what he did if he hadn't even set those goals in the first place. And after all, you'll never achieve the goals you don't set. So true. And the brain is a goal-seeking organism. Setting a goal creates structural tension in your brain, which will seek to close the gap between where you are and where you want to be. You who are and who you want to become. If you don't set goals, your mind will become stagnant. Goal setting is good stewardship of your right brain imagination, and it's also great for your prayer life. And I have to agree with what our author writes here, because we as human beings, we feel that we have purpose or that we have value when we start to accomplish things in our life, right? And so we do. I don't know even if it's necessarily as intentional as what this 15-year-old did in sitting down and writing out his goals. But we have, normally throughout our lifetime, we have kind of goals in the back of our mind. Like, okay, you know what? I would like to own my first house someday. I would like to get my graduate degree someday. And those types of goals. And then those keep us driven. I think that goals in any type of form, they keep us motivated to strive for more, to strive to better ourselves. And that is super important for us to be able to improve upon ourselves and to grow and develop as a person. Our author continues and says, when I first read Goddard's list of life goals, I was inspired to come up with my own life goal list. While I started more than a decade ago, I still view my list of 100 plus life goals as a rough draft. And every year I check a few goals off the list, but I also add new goals along the way. So, have you ever thought about writing out some goals? Doesn't have to be 100, doesn't even have to be 120. So, have you ever even sat down and written out 10? So I think this is going to be an excellent challenge for us this week. So our author writes, goals are the cause and effect of praying hard. And on the front end, prayer is a goal incubator. The more you pray, the more God-sized goals you'll be inspired to go after. But prayer doesn't just inspire godly goals, it also encourages you to keep praying hard. And that's what we've been talking about for now 15 chapters. Praying hard, praying through. Because it is the only way you'll accomplish a God-sized goal. Simply put, prayers naturally turn into goals, and goals naturally turn into prayers. And goals give you a prayer target. And I have to agree with that, because how many times when we are praying, aren't they really goals as well, and vice versa? And in their groundbreaking book, Built to Last, authors Jim Collins and Jerry Porras introduced the acronym BHAGs, or Big, Hairy, Audacious Goals. And our author has actually substituted the P for a G, and he says, I think of my God-sized goals as big, hairy, audacious prayers. They force me to work like it depends on me and pray like it depends on God. That is awesome. So setting goals is a practical way of dreaming big. If prayer is the genesis of dreams, then goals are the revelation. Goals are well-defined dreams that are measurable. And so then we start to talk about dreams with deadlines. So you give yourself a measurable goal. Like, I want to be able to retire when I'm 60. You know, something that you can actually measure to find out, did I accomplish that or not? Or, you know what, hey, I have to write this research paper by Friday at midnight. That's a goal. Am I going to make it? Hope so. Lord only knows on that one, right? But it's a measurable deadline. And so you'll be able to know if you've accomplished it or not. So keep that in mind too when you are thinking about life goals. So he goes on to put together 10 steps of goal setting. And we're not going to go into too much detail, but we're going to go over the 10 steps. So always, 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 as with anything, number one is to start with prayer. That's where it should always go. Always start first. So prayer is the best way to jumpstart the process of goal setting. I highly recommend a personal retreat or a season of fasting, which we talked about last week. It doesn't have to be completely getting rid of food, but maybe even just a Daniel fast where it's clean eating. It's stuff that nature has made. I came up with my original life goal list during a 2-day retreat. And he was talking about here about how this relaxed retreat or this schedule really allowed him to think big, because he was able to clear out all the junk that happened in our day-to-day lives. So he can focus on something much bigger. So I love that. So start with prayer. Number 2, check your motives. If you set selfish goals, you would be better off spiritually if you did not accomplish them, to be honest. And that's why you need to check your motives. You need to take a long, honest look in the mirror and make sure you're going after your goals for the right reasons. So is it only just to benefit you, or is it to benefit your family? Is it to benefit your neighbors? Is it to benefit the world? You know, that type of dream. So he had established a family foundation. It's something that is going to create a lasting legacy in the form of a charitable foundation. So that's one of the goals that he had, our author did. And so are there any type of goals like that? But then number 3 is to think in categories, and we're going to touch briefly on that later. But it says, one trick that has helped is thinking in categories. My goals are divided into 5 categories. 1 is family, 2 is influential, 3 is experiential, 4 is physical, and 5 is travel. So, how cool is that? But we'll talk a little bit more about that. Number 4 is be specific. So, don't make any of those just vague ones. Well, I want to be rich and happy by the time I'm in my 50s or 60s. Well, what does rich and happy look like to you? How much is your goal to be rich? Do you want to be a millionaire by the time that you're 60 or 70? You know, what is it? So try and define it so that you will know if you're getting close to hitting your target or if you have surpassed your target. Okay? Then number 5 is to write it down. So always, 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 just like in the goal of keeping a prayer journal, is to write it down. It solidifies it in our brain when we write it down. If we can visualize it by writing it out, doing a physical act, then we will have more of a chance for it to solidify in our brains and our hearts, so then we are naturally drawn to do it. Okay? 6, include others. So tell your family, tell your spouse, tell your friend about your dreams and your goals. And how are they invited to participate in your goal as well? Can they help you accomplish your goal? So that's kind of cool. 7 is celebrate along the way. So let's say that you want to save $1,000 by the end of the month. And let's say that each week that you have saved a couple $100s, well, each week celebrate. And don't go out and spend all that money that you just saved. But, just kind of give yourself like a pat on the back, or, take yourself out to a fun little movie to celebrate. Celebrate the little wins. And as I've gotten older, I have to say that is super, super important to celebrate the wins. And even if it's just staring at yourself in the mirror and grinning and laughing, you're like, hey, I did that. So that's my big whooping it up. So, but how do you whoop it up? Okay. So number 8 is dream big. Dream big. Don't be afraid to dream big. So if your goals are big, that's awesome, because who knows, you might just make your goal. Number 9 is think long. So one thing that he mentioned too is that when our author went ahead and did his own life goal list, he had 100. And as he was accomplishing some of the goals, he would put more new goals on the list. So this doesn't have to be just, well, I sit for 10 minutes, I think about it, write down all my life goals, and then I never change it, or I never think about it ever again. This life goal list is like a living document. It will change along with you as you go throughout your life. So be sure to think long, think hard, come back and reflect on that list. Is there something on that list that you're like, you know what, that's probably not going to happen? Feel free to take it off the list and replace it with something that you know is probably going to be a little bit more achievable, or maybe your desires have changed. I know for me that would be a huge thing, because as a kid I wanted to be a chiropractor. I am so far not a chiropractor, complete opposite. So yeah, so my life goal would have definitely changed if I would have written it down. So number 10 is pray hard. Pray so hard, as if your goals, it depends on your prayers to God. So then he talks about this life goal list and how he breaks it up into the 5 different categories, right? So the first category was family goals. So here's just a couple of ideas to get you going. So one of the things he says is to celebrate an anniversary in Italy. So that's a family goal that he has. Take each child on a mission trip. Okay. Or pay for our grandchildren's college education. So those are examples of family goals. All right. And then the influence goals. So, influence goals, this is really interesting. So, he said for himself, he's a pastor. He says, pastor one church for 40 plus years. Okay. So, depending on your denomination, the reality of that happening or not depends really on the denomination. Some denominations like to move you on after a handful of years. But one of his influence goals was to be a pastor for one church for 40 plus years. Another one was to speak at a college commencement. Okay. Or write a fiction novel. Okay. Write a New York Times bestseller. I'm assuming those probably go hand in hand. Start mentoring a group of pastors. Teach a college course. Anything that he can be influential onto others. Can he mentor? Can he teach? Can he lead a particular group of people that he just never really thought about before until now making this influence goal? So when you're making your influence goals, who can you mentor? Who can you reach out to? It's that type of influence. So then we have experiential goals. Now this is amazing because we have so many goals that we want to have for other people, but there's also goals that we want to have for ourselves that we can experience ourselves. So his first one was take summer to a Broadway play. Summer is one of his kids, so take Summer to a Broadway play. So he did that. One was go to a Super Bowl with one of his kids, Josiah. Super Bowl, that's kind of fun. Or spend a night on Catalina Island. Ooh, that sounds like fun too. Now here's one that he hasn't crossed off yet, but it says go skydiving. So I don't know if I would or not. Would you? So go to a cowboy camp with the boys. Learn how to surf. Yeah, I would be face forward into that water so fast if I even tried. So that's probably not going to go on my list, but good for him for learning how to surf on his list. So do a silent retreat. Go on an overnight canoe trip. Drive a race car. I think that's on every guy's to-do list. Drive a race car at some point, right? Or read the Bible from cover to cover. But he adds in 7 translations. So how about some of us, we just want to read the Bible from cover to cover just once in English, right? So you can have fun when you're making your goals. Make them fit for you. Then here are some examples of physical goals. He says hike the Grand Canyon from rim to rim. For me, I'd like to probably just hike around my neighborhood because I don't even do that. So, and then swim the Escape from Alcatraz. Wow, okay. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. Probably not, but hey, never know. Run a 10K. Okay. Run a triathlon. Dunk a basketball in my 40s. Bench press 250 plus pounds in my 50s. Okay, I can guarantee that list is probably not going to match my list at all. But so what are some physical goals that you can do? Bike a 100-mile trip, run a half marathon. Mine would probably be on the treadmill for, 30 minutes. I think that would be a physical goal that I could easily track and possibly attain. It would take a little bit. I'm that out of shape, people. Then there's financial goals. Be debt-free by 55. Now this is where he is really good about putting a specific detail in so that he knows if he's on the way to accomplishing it or not. He says live off 10% and give 90% by the time we retire. Give away $10+ million. Or lead his church to give $25 million to missions. So they are detailed goals that he can track. Are we on track to give $25 million to missions from his church? So, and it's something that he can really plan for. Then travel goals. Where do you want to travel to? Do you want to travel outside of the country, or do you just want to get to one of the coasts maybe? Or do you just want to make it out of your state? Because how many of us don't really leave our state that often. So he says, go to a Western rodeo. Well, he can come to South Dakota because we have Western rodeos. Climb to the rock-hewn churches in Ethiopia. So he's got quite a long list of places where he wants to travel. But those are the main categories that he talks about here, and it really gets us thinking. So I really encourage you this week to go through and write down a goal list, however many goals that you want. It could be even 5 goals, and maybe 1 goal from each list, each category, right? So write out a goal that pertains to your family, or it pertains to you influencing others, or a goal that helps you experience something. A physical goal is as far as exercise or something like that, or getting yourself healthier. What does that look like? What is something that is specific? And then financial goals or travel goals. Okay, so I really appreciate this book. This is super awesome because we can add this goal list to our prayer journal, and we will come back next week with chapter 16. And please let me know in the bottom how you're doing so far with your prayer journals, and how are you doing with setting your goals? Do you already just naturally set goals for yourself? Or is this something that is brand new to you and you haven't really taken time to think about? So write down below and get into your prayer journals this week. Write out those goals, and we will see you next week with chapter 16. Thank you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, go ahead and click the like button. And also, think about subscribing to our channel so you don't miss any of our videos. We also have a Facebook page where we post upcoming events for our church, Impact Church. And speaking of the church, we stream our services live to Facebook and YouTube every Sunday at 10 a.m. Central Time. So be sure to turn in for that. And if you missed the live stream, you can always watch them later right here on YouTube. And once again, thank you and have a great day.